I feel that unless you look at the brutal facts and look at them in a very undeceptive manner, you cannot chart your future. This is true for a human being, this is true for an organization, for a company, and for a nation. So I have taken the courage to talk about some brutal facts about health. And only then will we talk about what lies ahead and how, if we change some things, this nation, this great country with so many resources that everybody has talked about, can do really much better. And we have a lot of potential. So, of course, we'll talk about health, future, and what is the role. The first part, health, is a little, like I said, there are some brutal facts. Please hold on to your seats. Don't worry, we'll be better. The future is bright, as they say. Okay? And I'll show you why and how the future is bright. Okay, so we're going to talk about health. I could have talked about health, the future, medicine, which is going to may or may not come to Pakistan 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and it will cost $100,000. But I think it's really irrelevant. You will see why. We have to talk about the health of these people. And unless these people are healthy, let me assure you, and every historian, every analyst will tell you that unless these people are healthy, this nation can never be healthy. What is health? That a lot of people that I called did not know. Health has to be a quantitative and objective index, and the United Nations Development Authority program has developed a program index for the measurement of human health. And unless we know that and understand that, we cannot move into the future, and we'll keep on being deceptive. So the Human Development Index, as the UNDP defines, consists of 3 elements. This is how they measure it. One is the life expectancy at birth, life and healthy life, which is measured by life expectancy at birth. Second one is knowledge, which is, as you see, expected years of schooling. And the third one is standard of living. Standard of living, which means the gross national income of a country. So the UNDP studied in great detail 189 countries, and they graded them, one being the best and 189 being the worst. So if you look at it, Sri Lanka is rated at 71, Jordan is rated at 102, Bangladesh is rated at 135, and Pakistan, unfortunately, is rated at 152. Now let's look at why it is so, and what is wrong, and why are we so low in HDI, and how is health related to some of the other things, education and GNI. So if you look at the standard of living, is one thing, which is the gross national product, which UNDP also called the standard of living. So if you look at the standard of living, there are many measures, but obviously because of lack of time, I'm only using one, and which is that what percent of the population lives below the poverty line. So if you look at Pakistan, and how do they define poverty line? They define it by somebody making $5.50 per day, which translated into Pakistani currency today is about 25,000 rupees per month. 75% of the people of Pakistan live below the poverty line. In other words, 75% of the population of Pakistan makes less than 25,000 rupees a month. In Philippines, it's about 55%, and in Jordan, in Sri Lanka, it's 40% lives below the poverty line, and in Jordan, it lives. We will, of course, look at how it is impacting health and what we can do about it. If you look at education, there are many measures, but one of the measures that UNDP uses is what numbers of years of schooling. Pakistan has 9 years, Sri Lanka has 14 years. You can see about the others. So all these are composite things, marks, which go on to become HDI of a country, and this is why we are rated at 152, and it is important to know them, understand them, and of course demand our governments and do whatever we can as ordinary citizens, and this is really the elite of the country that is sitting here, and what we can do to change the policies. So if you look at health, which is our subject, again, the UNDP measures it by many elements. I'm only going to use one or two. Infant mortality. Pakistan has an infant mortality rate of 6.1%, and in Sri Lanka, the infant mortality rate is 0.8%. Or is it, 0.8%. Now, this is really something to think about, and we need to do something about it. I think that first you have to know what the problem is, and not just the government, a few people in the government, but everybody to know what. So if you look at the next, moving towards health and solutions now. Pakistan is unfortunate to be afflicted with the burden of triple disease. Now, what is a triple disease? Triple disease affects not only the mortality, but the morbidity of a nation, of a country, and the population of the people. So, the first disease is poverty-based diseases, or poverty, the UNDP calls poverty a disease. What is poverty-based diseases? Malnutrition, anemia, which causes lack of vitamins and minerals in lactating mothers, which causes stunted growth of children, and so on and so forth. Second is communicable diseases. Communicable diseases or infectious diseases is afflicted to the poor nations of the world. And third is non-communicable diseases, which is cardiometabolic diseases and heart and cancer and those kinds of things. Unfortunately, Pakistan many years ago did not have number 3, was not high on number 3. Recently, for reasons that are too time-taking, I'm going to cut that, although I had 1 minute on that, but I'll move on because we are keen to hear the Minister of Health. The non-communicable diseases also is one of the highest in the world in Pakistan. So if you look at diabetes, Pakistan is, the prevalence of type 1 and type 2 diabetes is 19%. This is the highest in the world, barring a few small islands, such as the Marshall Islands, etc. So this is what the unfortunate part of the triple diseases is. I've taken tuberculosis as a case study to prove my point and to prove my thesis, if you may, or to prove and to talk about it. If you look at tuberculosis, Pakistan's prevalence of tuberculosis is 267 per 100,000. Bangladesh has 221, Sri Lanka has 77, and Jordan has 6.8. So you can imagine that how many times are we, in terms of HDI and health, are we away or lower than or worse off than a country like Jordan or Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka. I understand Bangladesh was higher than us, but it has reduced its index, and it's not because. So the Global Fund, which consists of 4 countries, I believe Europe, UK, Canada, these 3 are the major contributors, I believe. They've funded and they donated $400 million of free medicines and testing in 23 years to treat tuberculosis in Pakistan. So, what do you think? With free medicines, the prevalence of tuberculosis should have gone down. So, the pundits, the old bureaucracy, people, media who are married to the economic theories of the 20s tell us and try to make us believe that free medicine or lower price medicine will cause a disease and make a nation healthy. Now let's look at the facts, the brutal facts. The brutal fact is the prevalence in 2000, around 2000, there were 23 people in Pakistan who had active tuberculosis diseases. 23 years later, and $400 million later, when there were free medicine being distributed by the Global Fund, and the prevalence went up from 2000 to 23 to 267. Now, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I think this is a little food for thought. Of course, here some apologists will say that the testing went up. Yes, there's a little factor of that, but not all of it. It is the HDI that is effective. Food for thought is that here is a nation of 220 million people, a brave and bold nation, one of the most brilliant minds in the world that I've come across after working in 7 countries, and the most hardworking people, and a nation which has nuclear weapons, but it cannot organize itself to make tuberculosis products available to its country. And hundreds of companies are dying to make tuberculosis products and give them at a competitive price, but we are still, I'm sorry to say, begging the world to give us free medicines. But inshallah will change. So that is really one thought. So future of health, this is the last depressing slide, and after that we'll look at the good slide. The future of health is it's very important to understand. What is happening is that HIV is becoming endemic in Pakistan. Many years ago when I went to some of the developing countries and I worked and lived in Africa, comorbidity or co-infection was a fact of life. When I came to Pakistan and we were manufacturing and marketing interferon and hepatitis C drugs, we were very different. We had no co-infection. Today, the co-infections are about to hit Pakistan in a very big way. You know, today 8% of the HIV patients living in Pakistan have tuberculosis, and 2.3% of tuberculosis patients have HIV. So this is a very telling slide. Here is a young man who was infected with HIV, and there's a funeral pyre there, and he's saying कि HIV के AIDS के मरीज का जनाजा है ज़रा धूम से निकले. And I think that unless we improve our HDI, I think we'll see more of this. Now, recommendations and solutions. It's easy to say give problems, but you have to give solutions. So Pakistan, first of all, we need to understand Pakistan can only improve its health if it improves its GNI education, and then only can it increase its HDI ratings. So how do we do it? I think first thing is change of mindset and learn from others. There are successful models in other countries, which I think all of us from the industry and from the government and policymakers have to embrace that. I'll show you one such example. If you look at this chart, there are 3 companies listed here. One of them is a new company. It was only set up in 1984, I believe, Sun Pharma, and Lupin. And then there was Hikma in Jordan. In Jordan, the first pharmaceutical factory was set up in 1978, whereas there were 9 major multinational companies, manufacturing facilities by 1952. So the reason I'm showing this to you is because Zahid bhai, there's something mentioned, there'll be your name in it also, you're party to this crime, so please. So Sun Pharma, the conventional logic that our policymakers preach us is that a good industry is a sick industry. Lower prices will improve health. We've already seen this. If you look at Sun Pharma, in 2007, this is a publicly listed company, so these numbers are verifiable. Its net after tax was 44%. It had sales of $931 million. It was exporting a little amount. Lupin is an older company, and then Hikma. There are many other companies, but I just, for sake of time, I've only taken 3. If you go to 2018, look at what Sun did. From that profits, it exported $2.9 billion. It invested in profits. A sick industry, a sick company can never become an exporter. But this is the mindset we are living with in this country. We were living with. I think that recently the Prime Minister's speeches have been very encouraging that companies have to make a profit in order to export. Lupin exports one company, $1.6 billion. Hikma, a Jordanian company. But most important is 44 plants. Sun Pharma has 44 plants. Lupin has 27 plants. And Hikma has 36 plants. I remember when I talk about the mindset that our former chairman, PPMA, Mr. Zahid Saeed, was on the television talking to the former Minister of Health from the previous government. He was arguing about prices, and the Minister of Health, former Minister of Health, said that look at him. He's talking about increasing prices. He built a second factory. From one factory, he has made 2 factories, and he's saying that you increase my prices, or do not freeze my prices. Look at this chart, ladies and gentlemen, and I think we need to then, that's what I call changing of mindset. Okay, just 3 more slides. But of course, the industry also has to invest, and really invest to improve its quality. Gets international certifications. Unlearn, learn, and change. You cannot have the same type of regulations as you had several years ago. And otherwise, I think if only the government changes and the industry doesn't change, that doesn't jive. Now, recommendation, the government must increase percent of GDP spending on health from current 2.6% to 6%. For years and years, it was spending almost 1% on health. Now it's spending 2.6, which is a big development and a big progress, and thank you, Minister of Health, for doing that. And I think we must go to 6 to 7%. Algeria spends 9%. Implement import substitution to increase manufacturing as a percent of GDP from the current. So, country after country, and Vietnam is a glaring example, is passing laws that if 3 molecules are manufactured in Pakistan, in their own country, then imports will not be allowed as long as the companies can guarantee the quantities and the prices. Bangladesh has had that policy since day one. But unfortunately, Honorable Minister, we still cannot, government cannot organize to implement that. Import substitution and why is import substitution necessary? Because, manufacturing sector in Pakistan, although it's only 35% of the economy, it contributes 65% of the taxes. So unless the manufacturing sector is supported, not by handouts, not by free handouts, but by these kinds of policies, all we want is a policy that other better models have done. I think we cannot improve our HDI because only manufacturing gives good employment with benefits to its workers. The agriculture does not. Increase the tax to GDP ratio to match the level of at least Jordan, Turkey, and even Bangladesh. Our tax to GDP ratio is even lower than Bangladesh. Our investment to GDP ratio is becoming half of Bangladesh. Our contribution of manufacturing to GDP is going towards half that of Bangladesh. So I think these are some of the things that all of us should know, and we should demand, write, and encourage to do that. We have to reduce to the draft time to register new products. The assessment of there's been a great development and progress in the assessment of the dossiers, but the pricing have been stuck for 2 years, and as a result of which, what happens is that some companies who are ready to launch that product in a different country, do not get the registration, but Bangladesh and other companies get it, and they are there to market, and they have taken all the market, and we are sitting here. So this Pharma Summit, I think, the DRAP and the Ministry of Health and the industry must have a consensus statement, at least one, and then it is implemented. Unless we do that, I think there'll be a lot of good stuff, but unless we make a consensus statement based on presentations here and based on discussions here, we should have more workshops, and then we should have a consensus statement that the industry should be bound to, and hopefully the government will be bound to. Thank you very much.